Imagine you have roughly 2 million rand to spend.
Okay, a decent budget.
Right. And you could buy into this hyped up, trendy neighborhood and end up in a tiny, cramped box. Like a place where you can literally hear your neighbors sneeze through the drywall.
Oh, yeah, we've all lived in one of those at some point.
Exactly. Or you could buy a freestanding home with a massive garden sitting right next to a sprawling park in a neighborhood that no one is currently bragging about on social media.
Which is a very different vibe.
It totally is. Today, we are looking at the psychology of the anti-hype buyer. Welcome to today's deep dive, tailored specifically for you, the listener.
Yes, welcome.
Our mission today is to figure out what actually drives modern property demand when you strip away all the flashy marketing.
Because you, listening to this, are probably trying to figure out how to navigate a market that often feels, well, completely irrational.
Well, completely.
You don't just want a list of current prices. You want to understand the underlying mechanics of value.
Which is why we're doing this.
Exactly. And to do that, we are pulling insights from a breakdown by a show called The Josie Property Pulse.
We're focusing on one highly specific microeconomy in Johannesburg, a suburb called Northwold.
Northwold, yeah.
We are going to unpack the anatomy of what they call a booming hidden gem.
And the breakdown, it immediately hooked me with this very specific phrase they used to describe Northwold's defining vibe. They called it Suburban Calm City Access.
That's a great way to put it.
Okay, let's unpack this. How does a neighborhood build high demand and, a rock-solid market without becoming an overpriced, heavily marketed hype zone?
Right, the million-dollar question.
Or the 2 million rand question. But seriously, that is the core tension we are exploring today.
Well, before we throw any hard financial numbers around, we have to look at the map. We need to understand the geography first.
Always start with the map.
Right. The data points out that Northwold is arguably the best hidden gem in the north of Johannesburg right now. And a massive part of that equation is its location right next to Golden Harvest Park. Which, that changes the entire dynamic of the neighborhood.
It does, yeah. When you're analyzing property trends, proximity to substantial usable green space is, well, it's a massive multiplier for long-term value.
It completely alters the lifestyle offering.
Exactly. What's fascinating here is that the crucial detail highlighted in our source material is that buyers are getting this park-adjacent lifestyle without paying what the analysts call the Sandton price tag.
The Sandton Premium, yeah. I look at a suburb like Northwold almost like a high-end pair of noise-canceling headphones.
Oh, that's an interesting analogy. How so?
Well, you put them on,
Yeah.
and they immediately block out the chaos. That is your suburban calm, your proximity to Golden Harvest Park. It acts as a buffer.
I like that.
But you are still perfectly plugged into your device, meaning you have the city access you need to, commute, work, and socialize.
Following that logic, the economic mechanism at play here is really about utility versus branding. If you buy the biggest brand name in headphones, your Sandton equivalent in this scenario, you are paying a massive premium just for the famous logo stamped on the side.
Yeah, you're paying a tax just for the prestige of the name.
Precisely. The actual audio quality might be completely identical to a lesser-known brand.
Or even better sometimes.
Exactly. Modern buyers are becoming incredibly analytical. They're looking at the pure utility of a purchase.
They're doing the math.
They are. They look at a map and realize they can have the peace, the massive green space, and the easy commute. And they don't have to bankrupt themselves just to secure a prestigious postal code.
So they're actively choosing daily lifestyle utility over historical prestige.
Absolutely.
So if buyers are making this highly rational, utility-based choice, what is the actual cost of entry? Like, what does this actually look like in rands and cents?
Well, let's break it down.
Let's look at the traditional dream for most families, the freestanding home. The recent data tracking Northwold's freestanding market paints a very specific picture. Average prices are sitting comfortably between R1.8 million and R2 million.
Which is a very competitive bracket for a major metropolitan hub.
It really is. But here's the stat that genuinely made me stop reading. Recent tracking shows 45 homes moved for a total of R83 million.
That's a lot of movement.
Right. If you break that math down, it comes to an average of about R1.85 million per unit.
Which is huge. Because in real estate economics, an R83 million turnover in one specific localized suburb is a vital health indicator.
It means people are buying.
Yeah, it shows a highly liquid environment.
Okay, wait, I need to push back on this a bit.
Go for it.
The report calls the market rock solid based on those numbers, right?
Yeah.
But then later, they explicitly tell buyers to expect stable, modest growth.
Ah, yes. The word modest.
Yeah. If I am investing nearly 2 million rand of my own money, is modest growth actually what I want to hear? Or is that just an industry euphemism for a stagnant market where my money does absolutely nothing?
That's a very fair point. As an investor, you should absolutely interrogate a word like modest. It usually sets off alarm bells.
Right, no one wants to hear their investment is just being modest.
Exactly. But look at the mechanism behind those 45 sales. Explosive growth is almost always speculative.
It's driven by hype.
It is a bubble driven by emotion and artificial scarcity. When a market is experiencing 15 or 20% year-on-year growth, properties often aren't actually selling.
Wait, really?
Yeah, sellers are just listing them at aspirational prices and stubbornly waiting. Modest growth paired with 45 actual finalized sales means the market is truly liquid.
Meaning the money is actually moving. I get it. If I have an asset on paper that says it's worth R5 million, but no one is willing to write me a check for R5 million, I don't actually have R5 million.
Exactly. You just have a very expensive, illiquid piece of paper.
That is the liquidity trap of hype markets.
Right. What makes Northwold rank solid is the velocity of the transactions. The money is moving, the banks are actively approving bonds at that R1.85 million valuation, and appraisers actually agree on the worth.
So the market actually agrees on the price?
Yes. Properties are trading hands rather than sitting stale on property portals for 8 months.
Yeah.
If you ever need to sell, that liquidity guarantees you can actually get your money out.
Okay, so 45 moving trucks rolling through the streets is tangible proof of that.
Exactly.
But you have buyers grabbing freestanding homes at R1.85 million, while the data also shows buyers are willing to pay up to R3.5 million for an apartment in the exact same neighborhood.
Yeah, the contrast is stark.
That kind of widespread demand and massive price discrepancy usually points to a completely fractured market. What is actually going on with the townhouses and apartments here?
Well, this brings us to the sectional title market. For you listening who might not be familiar with the South African property terminology, a sectional title means you are buying a unit like a townhouse or an apartment within a larger shared complex.
So you own the internal space of your specific unit.
Yes, the legal mechanism is that you own your internal footprint, but you share ownership and therefore the financial liability of the common property.
Like the shared amenities.
Exactly. The gardens, the security gates, the exterior walls, the roof, that is all managed by a collective body corporate. And it's funded by monthly levies paid by all the owners within the complex.
So you are essentially outsourcing the headache of maintenance.
Precisely.
The tracking data on these sectional titles in Northwold is fascinating. Entry-level spots start at R1.3 million.
Okay.
The top end features what they call bigger family beauties with pools, hitting up to R3.5 million.
Wow. That R2.2 million spread within a single property category in one suburb is vast.
It's huge. It's less like a typical property ladder and more like a real estate buffet. Here's where it gets really interesting. The entry-level buyers, they're pulled into the center at R1.3 million.
Getting their foot in the door.
Right. They get their foot in the door as young professionals. But as they gain wealth and their families grow, they don't spin out into other more expensive suburbs.
They stay local.
They stay. They just move to the outer rings of the exact same neighborhood, upgrading to those R3.5 million sectional titles.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the motivation behind that is explicitly detailed in the analysis. People are actively rejecting what the report calls cramped boxes.
Nobody wants a cramped box.
There is a market-wide premium being placed on internal square footage. Buyers are no longer willing to accept tiny claustrophobic apartments in ultra-trendy areas just to maintain an illusion of prestige.
They want room to breathe.
They absolutely want room to breathe.
But explain the underlying logic to me here. Why would an established family choose to drop up to R3.5 million on a sectional title townhouse, sharing walls and paying monthly levies to a body corporate, when we just established they could buy a massive freestanding house a few streets over for R1.85 million?
It's a great question. It really comes down to shifting liability and buying time.
Buying time.
Yeah. When you buy a freestanding home, you are the CEO of that property. If the roof leaks, you have to find the contractor. If the pool pump breaks, you replace it.
It's all on you.
It's all on you. When someone spends our $3.5 million on a luxury sectional title, they were not just buying square footage in a private pool. They are buying outsourced liability.
Oh, that makes sense.
They want the luxury of a large home, but they want the body corporate to deal with the garden service, the security perimeter, and the exterior painting.
So they're essentially buying back their weekends.
Exactly. And in a high-stress modern economy, time is a massive premium.
Okay, so you have this massive demand for entry-level apartments, a huge appetite for luxury townhouses, and 45 freestanding homes moving seamlessly.
A lot of activity.
A ton of activity. That level of demand usually triggers a massive bidding war. Someone is usually getting squeezed, right? So who actually holds the power here? Is this a buyer's market or a seller's market?
The analysis provides a very clear, it's somewhat counterintuitive answer.
Yeah.
It is both.
Both. How does a market favor the buyer and the seller simultaneously?
Because it operates as an honest opportunity with zero hype.
Okay, unpack that.
In a volatile, hype-driven market, buyers are forced to overpay due to artificial scarcity and bidding wars. Here, buyers benefit because they get that stable, liquid market we discussed.
Right.
They can enter at a fair price point without paying a hype tax.
And what about the sellers?
Well, sellers benefit because they hold the ultimate modern suburban currency.
Yeah.
They're offering properties on what the report specifically identifies as secure boondoff streets.
Right. Let's actually clarify that term for anyone listening who might be unfamiliar with the setup.
Good idea.
A boom, in this context, is essentially a privately managed security checkpoint. Entire neighborhoods literally barricade their public streets with boom gates and employ private guards to monitor and control exactly who comes in and out.
It's very common there.
Yeah, it essentially creates a micro-gated community out of a normal municipal suburb.
And that controlled access is what families are desperate for. Sellers hold properties within these secure perimeters.
Right, they have what people want.
Exactly. So the sellers offer this highly desirable, secure environment, and in exchange, buyers provide a reliable, steady stream of demand, which we saw with those 45 home sales.
So it's a perfectly balanced ecosystem where the fundamentals of supply and demand are actually matched.
Which is incredibly rare.
It is. Finding a real estate market that operates on zero hype feels almost impossible today. And the data actually points directly to an area specialist on the ground, Robert Haynes, from CLOB Real Estate. The report practically hands you his business card.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it actually includes his direct cell number, 082-560-9465.
Oh, wow.
It just goes to show that in a market completely devoid of flashy viral marketing campaigns, having an old-fashioned, guy-on-the-ground expert is your only real way to navigate the inventory.
That makes total sense. A hyper-local market requires hyper-local knowledge.
You can't just Google it.
No, you cannot rely on broad, citywide trends to understand a microeconomy like Northwold. You need someone who knows exactly which boom gate operates efficiently and which complex actually has a healthy body corporate.
Okay, to summarize what we've unpacked today, Northwold is serving as a masterclass in modern buyer psychology.
It really is.
It proves that proximity to green spaces like Golden Harvest Park, a hard rejection of cramped living spaces, and the promise of zero hype stability creates a thriving environment. And it achieves this across an incredible range of price points, from the R1.3 million sectional title up to the R3.5 million luxury unit, all anchored by a highly liquid R1.85 million freestanding market.
Well, this raises an important question for you to mull over as we wrap up today.
I'm intrigued.
We've seen how powerfully the modern buyer is prioritizing boondoff security and physical space over the traditional prestige of expensive city centers like Sandton.
Yeah.
So looking ahead, will the defining luxury real estate of the future be measured not by the famous name of the neighborhood, but simply by the square footage of the home and the height of the boom gate?
A brilliant thought to leave on. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.